Alright, so the first trend I'm going to talk about today is Toys to Life. Toys to Life was this system where you had these toys and you put them on the pad, and then it would show up as a playable character in the video game. And this was a real big trend back in the 2010s. It started with Skylanders, was the first one to do it. These are Skylanders right here. In 2011 was when they did the first game, and they made like five of them until 2016. So they were pumping these things out. But Skylanders was the first to do it, and they were pretty big in the early 2010s, I would say. But eventually people lost interest. The most recent one, Skylanders Imaginators, did not sell that well. Then they stopped it. But there were a lot of other Toys to Life competitors that jumped on the trend. There were three main ones, Skylanders, and the other big one was Disney Infinity. So Disney Infinity was just like Skylanders, but of course, instead of original characters, it was Disney characters. The last of the big three is Lego Dimensions, and it's definitely my favorite of the three. It's the one that I've played the most. I probably played through the story like at least five times. And it's definitely the most ambitious one. You know, Skylanders is original characters, Disney Infinity is Disney characters. With Lego Dimensions, the only thing the franchises in the game have in common is that they're in the game. The main pack came with Batman, Gandalf, and Wildstyle. You know, once you play through that story and you just explore the open world, what can you do? Not much, because you need to buy the characters, right? You want to play as Sonic the Hedgehog? You gotta buy him separately. He's like the most popular character in the game, but I can't even show him to you because I don't have him. And especially now that they're discontinued, getting those figures is like really expensive, even more so than it was when they were active. Buying every Lego Dimensions character in total would cost $889. And that doesn't include how much they cost now that they're discontinued and rare and expensive. What made the Toys to Life thing so smart from a marketing perspective was that if you wanted to play another character, you had to buy it separately, right? Because they were all toys, all physical toys. You got to buy them all. So if you want to play as Crash Bandicoot in Skylanders, you gotta buy him separate from the main game. So it's kind of a double edged sword. On the one hand, you get these cool figures that you can place into the game, but on the other hand, you gotta spend a lot more money, even if you want to play just like two or three characters. Plus, since the base games come with characters themselves, they cost like $100, which is more expensive than a typical video game. All right, the next trend I'm going to talk about is fidget spinners. Remember these things? These were real big in like 2017. All they do is spin, really, but these things were everywhere. But you don't really see them anymore. They don't really. People don't really have these anymore. And I think the reason is pretty obvious. Just spins. And that's cool, but it's the only thing it does, you know? It doesn't do anything. It just spins, which is fine enough. But, you know, eventually society's going to get over that, and they did. If you compared it to something like Legos have infinite possibilities of what you can do with them, which is why they've been around since like the 60s and are still popular today. Whereas with fidget spinners, they can only do one thing. But these were everywhere back in the day. I remember the school banned them because that's how popular they were, that they were everywhere and they were distracting all the kids, and our school ended up banning them. But of course, people were bringing them anyway because that's how much people love these things. And this was one that I got, of course, when they were popular. I had two others too. Like, I literally bought free fidget spinners during the peak of these things. I think the fidget spinner really is like the best representation of the 2010s, definitely for toys from the 2010s, because like this is just something that you don't see anywhere else, you know? It's just like something that wouldn't exist in any other time before or since, you know? And this is really just the embodiment of that 2016, 2017 time frame, third grade. That's when the sales peaked, but eventually sales declined. People lost interest. They moved to other fidgets. The poppets became a big thing. That was more early 2020s, though. Eventually, people moved on from those too. There's not really a big fidget right now. Maybe it's because we're older, so I don't know what the kids are playing with. So, alright, so the next thing I'm going to talk about was a big event, and that was a year the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl. I don't know which number it was, but I know it was 2017. Now, obviously, this is a very local event, and outside of the Philadelphia area, it doesn't matter that much, but this was big. Here's the thing, I don't care about football or any sports for that matter. They just don't interest me. But even I was feeling the excitement in the air when this happened. I mean, this was a huge deal. It was probably the biggest sports mania I have ever experienced or seen before or since. Even when the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl again a couple years ago, I don't know. It wasn't that same level of anticipation. It might be because in 2017, that was like the first time the Eagles have been in the Super Bowl in a very long time, and they have never won a Super Bowl till that point. But I remember we literally had an assembly on the day of the game just to hype everyone up. And you know, it worked. I got excited, and we all were praising this quarterback, Carson Wentz, who I was doing research on, and apparently he didn't even play. So, like, why are we glazing this guy so much, you know? He didn't even play the game. But yeah, we had a whole assembly. And the weird thing is, apparently, there were 100 million free people watching the game about, and apparently it's actually kind of low for a Super Bowl, so it was actually a less popular game, which is very surprising. But I just feel like everyone, including people that don't care about sports, like me, was excited for this game. And it was one of the few sports games that I watched in its entirety live. So, yeah. So the next trend I'm going to talk about is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or MCU for short. So basically, the MCU was this movie series of different franchise films connecting to each other to form a larger narrative. So it has things like Iron Man, Avengers, Spider Man, Black Panther. All those guys are MCU. These movies were huge, and there were a ton of them. In the 2010s, they released 21 Marvel movies, and 9 of them made over $1 billion. Avengers Endgame, which was like the finale of the major story that they were going on in 2019, became the highest grossing movie of all time before they re-released Avatar, and that took the top spot again. Now, I'm a big comic guy. I really love Marvel and the superheroes, and the MCU is what got me on the start of that. I think this poster is good, not just as a way to show you guys how much I am into Marvel, but also as a way to show the mindset that Marvel was in the 2010s, and how basically everything they did was just in promotion with the MCU. If you look at this poster, you'll notice that there are no X-Men characters, none at all. And that's because they didn't have the X-Men in the MCU. It was a whole rights issue. But it kind of just shows that Disney and Marvel, even the comics that did have the rights to the characters, were just kind of ignoring anything that wasn't in the MCU, because that's how popular it was and that's how much they prioritized it. They don't have the Fantastic Four here either. So, the last trend I'm going to talk about today is Pokemon. Now, Pokemon started in the 90s, but in 2016, there was a game called Pokemon Go. Basically, you walked out the areas like this, and you would catch Pokemon on your phone, but you would actually have to move around the town to catch them. Kind of like how they actually do it in the TV show. And this was huge. It was one of the biggest mobile games of all time. And it started a huge resurgence in Pokemon. And Pokemon cards became huge again. I'm not even a big Pokemon fan, but I still collected cards. You know why? Because that's what everyone else is doing. And I have quite a bit of them, too. And, you know, there was a card game, but the funny thing is, no one actually knew how to play it, but people wanted to play it anyway, so we were all just making up our own rules as we went along. But, yeah, Pokemon Go, it was a huge thing, because it wasn't only the kids that were playing it, it was also the adults. A lot of parents of friends I know were playing the game as well. And because it's a game you play by moving around, you actually got to see people play it instead of them just doing it in their house. And the game is still very, very popular. And yeah, it's fun to walk around in real life, capturing Pokemon, battling Pokemon, and it's the closest that we have to being a real-life Pokemon master, traveling the world. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a pretty genius design when you think about it. So, yeah, that's my last trend.